What up, everybody? It's Matt from Nerd Knights Penguin coming at you with episode 4 of our Chronicles of Drunagor, where we're going to be painting Jaheen. This miniature comes at a request from Paul, who is an avid poster, and thank you for that, Paul. And we are going to be doing this pretty simple, a little bit longer video because I don't know, maybe I feel like filming more. I don't know. If this is your first time at the channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We're doing 2 videos a week at least. Chronicles of Drunagor, Madara. I have a ton of Kickstarters. I think I counted 15 that are in the works or whatnot. So hit that subscribe button, hit that bell button, hit that thumbs up, leave a comment below what you want seen. But otherwise, let's go. Obviously, if you've been watching this, you know that the first thing you're going to do is prime and prep these miniatures. If you need any supplies, check the links below. Specifically, check out the brush link below that I use. These are the brushes that I use from Rosemary & Co. If you feel like you want different brushes, use the code that I listed, Nerd Knights Painting, and it helps out this channel a lot. Our first base color we're going to use is going to be our skin tone, which is Knight-Questor Flesh. If you didn't have this specific color, because this is a color I don't use a whole lot, you could do some brown mixed in with a little bit of Bugman's Glow or even Cadian Flesh Tone to get this kind of color. We're going to be doing the hands, the arms that are exposed, and obviously the face. We're going to be doing a mixture of regular acrylic paints and some contrast paints. And if you've been watching this series for a while, you know that I've been kind of heavily using these contrast paints a lot more because of the ease of using them and the quality of them. I wasn't a fan at first, but wow, I've really become a fan of these contrast paints. Specifically something like this where we're doing wood. I think it looks really good, this specific Cygor Brown on wood. For our shield, to include the front of our shield and a portion of the back side of our shield, we are going to be using Lead Belcher. For the hair, we're going to use a little bit of Rhinox Hide. Now, I use a wet palette to help save my paints because we're going to be going back and using the same paints we had before on our miniature. So I use a wet palette. It keeps them a lot longer. That stuff keeps for days and days and days where I can just close the cap, come back at another time, finish painting what I'm painting, and move on. For the blue scarf and a little portion of the front to include the back of the scarf, we're going to be using Caledor Sky. Another color I don't use that often. It is very pretty, but I just don't use it that much. So if you don't have the specific color, use just something similar. It's almost like a sky blue. For our hammer and our shoulder pads, just the top of the shoulder pads, are going to be using some gray nice steel. For all of our cloth areas in the front and the back, we're going to be using Zandri Dust. Just be cognizant of the shoulder a little bit. If you get some onto something you've already painted, just go ahead and paint back over that with whatever color you got on it. The back is a pretty big surface area, and it makes sure we're getting the front portion by the belt, but we'll be going over it here in a second with some Rhinox Hide. For our pants or trousers, whatever you want to call them, we're going to be using some Shyish Purple. Now this is the key portion of the zenithal highlighting. This purple, when it dries, it is going to be already a form of highlighted when it dries. You're going to see that the white sticks out and it gives you that nice tone variation, matching the card art actually pretty damn well. For the belts and the belt he's got around his chest, I don't know what the hell that is. We're going to be using some Dryad Bark, and part of the gauntlets that are underneath the hard leather, we're going to be using Dryad Bark as well. We're going to go back to our Rhinox Hide well, and we're going to hit those straps up that is on the shield and the straps that are on his right hand holding up the mace or hammer. I guess you could call it a hammer. And that's why we're using a wet palette, is because of this specific incident. I should have got it to begin with, but I decided that, I don't know, I missed it. It's my fault, I'm only human, you know what I mean? And then the front portion to match our card art is going to be a little sliver of like leather coming down with a cross on it. We're going to paint that as well. This is a very watered down Rhinox Hide that I had, so I had to go over it a couple times. For the entire base to include the rocks, we're going to be using Basilicanum Grey, another contrast paint from Citadel, and immediately when it dries you're going to notice that the white sticks through, and we're going to highlight it up here in the highlight phase coming up. For the boots, we're going to use some black Templar. Now I got too much initially on my brush, so I put it on the back of my hand. I typically use the back of my hand for offloading excess paint that I have on my brush constantly. This is another reason why we do the zenithal highlighting, if I haven't said that enough, is because that white is going to stick through and it's going to give you a natural highlight. Easy peasy. For the bottom of our robe, I guess you could say, we're going to use some Squig Orange. Now we're going to do the blue portion later in the video because we're going to highlight it first, so don't do that right now, but we will be using this color again towards the end. Now the longest segment of this video is going to be our gold, which we are using Retributor Armour from Citadel, which is a fantastic product. I really love this gold that Citadel makes. It's gorgeous. Well, we're going to be painting numerous areas on our miniature to include the front belt buckle, the buckle that is around his chest, parts of the hammer, and parts underneath the hammer head, if that makes sense. But just follow along with the video because this part's going to be a couple minutes long as I'm doing it. We're going to go back with our lead belcher and put on a little bit on the end of that rope or whatever it's on his belt hanging down. For our other gold we're going to use Balthasar Gold, and we're going to do the inside of our shield, just the metal pieces that are sticking out on the inside. And then we're going to go over with the different. This looks very brassy, which is not matching the card art, but it will in the next phase, trust me. And finally, we're going to use some Sigmarite as a dry brush on the outside of the miniature. Now to start our wash, we're going to start off with Nulin Oil on all of our metal pieces. If we get it on some other portions, it's not a big deal because we're doing this one right after the other. And washes take a minute to dry. For all of our cloth pieces, we're going to be using some Agrax Earthshade. We are not using this on our gold. The gold we're going to be using Seraphim Sepia here in a moment. But we're going to be going over all of the Talaran Sand portion. Do not get the pants and do not get the boots. Those are done. We are going to keep them the way they are because they're already naturally highlighted with the zenithal highlighting. If while you're waiting for this to dry, after you're doing all of your washes, head over to our Instagram at nerd.nights, where you keep up to date with everything we got going on. For our skin tone, we're obviously going to use some Reikland Fleshshade, the peanut butter and jelly, like Nulin Oil and lead belcher on our face. If you get too much in the face, just dab it with your brush, get some of that paint or that wash off, put it on the back of your hand or put it on a napkin, whatever you have readily available. For our blue scarf, we are going to be doing a Drakenhof Nightshade. And finally, for our gold pieces, we're going to be using some Seraphim Sepia. If you get some into the cloth, again, not a big deal. It's going to be a little orangish, but I'm sure it'll be minimal. Don't dunk it straight into the pot, but you know, nice and easy. Don't go crazy with it. As the last step starts, we're going to be doing highlights, and the first thing we're going to be doing is the eyes, where we're going to do some Abaddon Black to make our eye sockets, basically. We are then going to take some white to make our eyeballs. Obviously you want it not all the way around the black, just put a nice little white dab in the middle. Not too big, not too small, just right in between. Then I'm going to take the smallest brush you got. I use a size 10-0 brush and paint some little eyeballs in that white. We are then going to start highlighting up our skin, and to start this, we're going to use a reapplication of Knight-Questor Flesh. We're only doing this on the raised areas on the arm and the hands, and underneath the arm and the armpit, I just got that little portion that is exposed by the chainmail. On the head and the face, or just the face, we're going to be doing the forearms, the nose, the bridge of the nose, the cheekbones, and the chin, and that's it. To take our skin tone a little bit further, we're going to take our Knight-Questor Flesh and we're going to add 1/4 of a brush of Ushabti Bone. Now this is a very overpowering mixture if you add too much Ushabti Bone, so less is more. Get a tone you like, but that was one that I liked just to highlight it up just a little bit. Nothing crazy. We want to keep that skin tone obviously dark, but we're going to go over the same areas on the face, the hands, the fingers specifically, and his exposed arm on both sides, or arms on both sides. There we go. I'm going to highlight up our rock real quick just to get it done and over with. We're going to use some Dawnstone on the entire thing. So obviously you have the rock that he is standing on, and then the other small rocks that are sticking up or protruding from the base. We're going to hit those real quick. Then we are going to dry brush some Adminastrum Grey onto these rocks. Now less is more in this instance because that gray is really light and it's going to stick out like a sore thumb. So just very light, sparingly. Get that nice rocky look, and that's all we're looking for. For the front of our shield, we're going to dry brush on some Necron Compound. If you don't have this, you can use a Runefang Steel or an Iron Breaker and just dry brush that on. It's the same difference. We are then going to take our gold of Guinea-Hana's gold, and we're going to highlight up that front and back portion of our shield. Now the back portion, the portion that he is holding, is going to be completely over the brass looking color we already did. And the front portion is going to be the raised areas that I will see here in a second. If you get some into the cracks of the raised areas on the front of that shield, just take some Nulin Oil and put it in the crack. It'll make it disappear like magic. So don't be afraid to do this step, because I messed it up completely and then I just put some Nulin Oil in the crack that I got too much paint into and it looked fine. We are then going to take some Runefang Steel and very lightly, you're almost scraping this damn thing with the raised areas, putting that Runefang Steel on. You're not jamming it down the miniature's throat, you're just scraping it over those raised areas just to kind of make it a nice tone variation of the light silver versus the dark silver. To highlight up the front portions of the gold on the miniature, we're going to be using Liberator Gold. Now this is one of the only paints that I have that gives me problems every time, just because the pigmentation of it turns very orangey. So I got to sit there for a couple minutes with a ball bearing in there and shake the living crap out of this thing. You know, shake it like it owes me money until it gets there. Make sure you're doing that. Make sure it's not orangey and it has a nice consistency like it's supposed to. If this happens to you, let me know, because maybe I just got a bad batch, or I don't know. But we're going to be doing all of those front portion areas of gold and just highlighting them up. For our scarf, we're going to take a reapplication of our Caledor Sky. Now we do not want to get this in the recesses, obviously. We are just getting the raised areas. We're then going to take a 50-50 mix of Caledor Sky and Teclis Blue and painting our raised areas once again, what we just went over with the Caledor Sky by itself. Then to take our highlights a little bit further, we're going to take one brushful of Adminastrum Grey and add it to the mixture we just had of the Caledor Sky and Teclis Blue. And we are going to highlight it up just a little bit to make it a little bit more brighter. For our Night Guard outfit thingy, there you go, Jesus. We're going to be using a reapplication of Zandri Dust, and again, only the raised areas. We do not put this damn paint in the recesses at all. Recesses are supposed to stay dark. That's what they're supposed to look like. Keep it that way. So we're going to put that on there, and we are going to paint all of that around. Now just be careful because we have put highlights in a lot of places on this miniature. We do not want to get it on highlighted places that we already have because it is kind of a pain in the butt to get that painted back over. Once you're doing that, you're going to add 1/4 brush full, so a quarter of a brush full to your Zandri Dust mix, and that's going to lighten up just a little bit. And again, we're going to go over the same areas we just went on, but we're going to focus on the areas where the sun touches the most in the raised portions, just to give it that tone variation from the Zandri Dust to a lighter version of Zandri Dust. And we're just going to go over the miniature and do that. We're going to take our Granite Steel again, and we are going to highlight up our pauldrons and our chainmail. We're going to take a 50-50 mix of Rhinox Hide and Gorthor Brown, and we're going to highlight up all of our leather areas to get a nice little tone variation from that leather. We're going to also use this on the tips of the hair. If you want to go lighter with this, you absolutely can, but the hair is pretty dark from the card art, so we didn't go crazy on it. And as we're finishing up this miniature, one of the last things we're going to do is put the orange little designs onto our miniature, and just basically put some Jacario orange, and we're making like the little triangle formations on the front of his scarf and then highlighting up again on the bottom. I also forgot to put some blue in the middle of the cross, so also do that, whatever kind of blue you would like, in the belt buckle. And then finally, once we are all done with that, we're going to paint the base with a little Mechanicus Standard Gray. And that is it. It looks pretty effing good. A lot of steps, a lot of paint, a lot of going back and forth. My apologies for that, but it looks pretty dang good. I just want to say thank you for watching. If you are a subscriber, thank you for subscribing and watching this channel and supporting it. I can't thank you enough. If you are not a subscriber, I plead you. Plead to you. Join us in the Nerd Knights world. But until the next episode, paint on.